Warning: the following video is not meant to be a review on the game itself. It is simply meant to be my first experience when playing the game for the first time. While there may be some review elements in this video, it is entirely meant to just tell you about my personal first experiences with this game. You are free to tell me about your personal experiences in the comments below and tell me what you think about what I mentioned in this video. Hey there guys, and welcome to the first installment of my personal first game experiences. This is a series of videos in which I pretty much go back and think about the very first time in which I have ever played a video game. Or more specifically, a certain type of video game. We pretty much all happen to have our first experiences with this game and pretty much how we first saw the game and how we had thought that the game could be like later down the line once we got further on into the game, as well as a couple of things that we assumed were cases in the game and some other cases maybe not so much. Now, the whole reason why I'm doing this is because given the lack of views and commenters on my Let's Play channel, I figured maybe this could be a good way to get some attention. Although if you know of some better ways on getting attention on my Let's Play channel, do feel free to post them in the comments below. But with that said, let's dive right into my personal first experiences with Super Mario 64. Now, I think that when I was much younger, like before I got my own copy of Super Mario 64, I think that there were about 2 people that I knew in my life who did have a copy of Super Mario 64. There was my next door neighbor, and there was my cousin, who actually lived out of town. Although, I am pretty much going to talk as if I am going over my own personal copy of the game. So when I was playing around with Super Mario 64, it was pretty basic to me about how there were all of these paintings around Princess Peach's castle. You jump into a painting and you end up in a level. And there are a couple of things to get in this level, such as the coins and the stars. Now, there is another question that some people may have when they are first playing the game, such as, if I enter a level, how do I exit out of it? Well, most experienced players would probably know that the simplest way to exit out of a level would be to just simply pause the game and select exit course. But if you were a beginner, would you know that? Probably not. And if you were a beginner, how long did it take for you to figure that out? Did you one day discover it all on your own? Or did a cousin or sibling or friend of yours actually do this sort of thing while you were watching them, and that was how you figured it out? Well, for me, anytime that I wanted to exit out of a level, I would just need to jump off of the edge, since most levels happen to have this endless void that you could just jump off of the ledge, and you get kicked out of the level. Granted, you do lose a life from doing this, but this was the only way that I knew how to exit out of a level. But there was also the problem with the fact that there were some levels that didn't have empty voids that you could just jump into and instantly die, such as Bob-omb Battlefield, the first level of the game. Like, there is no area in which you could just jump off of the edge and lose an extra life. You probably would need to find other ways on losing a life to exit out of the level. You know, it just seemed kind of bizarre for me to just be exploring Bob-omb Battlefield and having no idea as to how I'm supposed to exit out of this level when I want to go to another level, because I can't jump off of the edge like I could with a lot of the other levels. And another one would be saving and quitting the game. I suppose it is pretty obvious that you really can only save and quit the game if you collect a star and then select the option to save and quit. Well, how many of you, when you first played this game, thought about just getting a game over. That's exactly what I did. Anytime I wanted to stop playing the game, I just had to purposely get a game over. I'm not sure if there are some people that think that getting a game over might have been a little bit scary, like maybe it was at first glance. But for me, I don't think I was ever scared about getting a game over. Now, of course, getting a game over or dying was not the only way that you could exit out of a level. You could also exit out of a level by collecting a star. And in most cases, you would be kicked out of a level anytime you collected a star. Now, I know that some people would actually find this to be annoying, but, you know, if you wanted to find some way on exiting a level, this was pretty much the way to do it. And the same would go for saving and quitting the game. But how many people really knew this when they first played the game? Now, another thing would be, do you pay attention to collecting the coins in the levels? Well, it wasn't really something that I looked into the first couple of times that I played the game. Although I do remember one time that my cousin was in Juan's fortress and she was doing the star, which involves you grabbing hold of the owl. And I remember that she grabbed on to the owl, flew right over to the cage where you're supposed to have the owl drop you down into, and then just had herself drop down into the cage and get the star. Now, I think that I remember her saying, "I have gotten 0 stars." But I think that what she actually meant was, "I have gotten 0 coins," because she did not collect a single coin during the star mission like she or anyone I knew who played the game usually had. And it is very easy to avoid collecting any coins when collecting the star. I just thought that I would bring that up because it's a memory that I have and I figured that it would be good to share it. And then there are the Bowser battles. Like, if you enter Bowser in the Dark World, you probably would think, well, as soon as I beat Bowser, this is probably going to be the end of the game, right? Well, that's where you would be wrong. I mean, this is not the final boss battle, it's moreover the first. Yes, King Babam could technically count as being the first boss, but some people would consider that to be a mini-boss. But as far as the first battle against Bowser is concerned, Bowser in the Dark World is basically the first boss of the game. At least the first Bowser boss battle. When fighting Bowser for my first time, I wasn't quite sure what it was I needed to do. I first thought that I just needed to throw Bowser out of the course, but anytime that I did throw him off the edge, he would just always come back. In order to beat Bowser, you needed to swing him towards one of the bombs that are surrounding the area. Now, of course, when you do collect the key from fighting Bowser in the Dark World, I bet your first thought is that you need to stick the key right through the key door at the top of the staircase. Although it does make me wonder if Nintendo had done this intentionally. Now, before we continue on, another topic that I would like to bring up would be about the courtyard in the back. I remember that a couple of times during my first playthroughs of the game, sometimes I would come to the back to find that there is nothing out there. And sometimes I would come to the back to find that there are boos. Although, I was a bit confused as to why there were boos in the back sometimes, and other times there were not. Playing the game nowadays, I think that the boos appear once a certain number of stars are collected. And of course, this is also the point in which the level Big Boo's Haunt is opened up. Now, getting back to the Bowser levels, there is also the factor that down in the basement, you need to collect 30 stars in order to get to the second Bowser level. Now, when I first discovered this Bowser level, I think that I was playing a save file that my cousin had already played through a bit, and Bowser in the Fire Sea was just already opened up because my cousin had already done what she needed to do in order to open this level up, so I had no idea as to what you were actually supposed to do. What you are actually supposed to do, which I think is something that I didn't discover upon until the first time that I played this game all the way up from the beginning without relying on anyone else helping me, and just trying to swim over to the top of Bowser's sub and getting the star. Now, how many of you had thought that you were supposed to get inside of the submarine? It was a bit surprising to me at first because anytime I entered Dire Docks before this point, there was no submarine, and what happens to it after this first star? Well, as it turns out, the submarine will be there up until the point at which you beat Bowser in the Fire Sea. Now, I actually thought that I was supposed to go inside of the submarine if I haven't already mentioned that, but as it turns out, you don't need to go inside of the submarine, and I don't think there is even any way for you to do that. All you just have to do is get on top of the submarine, grab the star, and Bowser in the Fire Sea is now open up. All you gotta do is travel all the way and fight Bowser for a second time. I'm not quite sure what my experiences with fighting the second Bowser were when I was first discovering upon this game, like before I really knew it all that well. Like maybe I didn't notice how different it was from the first Bowser fight. And of course, this is the Bowser battle in which you do get the second key to go up to the second floor in Princess Peach's castle. So, that locked door that pretty much bugged you for about the first 2/3 of the game, you can finally open up. And man, was it good to finally be able to get behind these doors and seeing what was beyond them. Now, I'm going to go real quickly and discuss about what I think about some of the other levels that can be found here. Well, for Snowmans Land, I'm not quite sure what I really thought about that level compared to Cool Mountain, which I haven't talked about yet, but maybe I'll get back to that. I do apologize if I do talk about these levels out of order, but as the disclaimer at the opening said, this was not really meant to be a review, just much rather my personal first experiences. Now, when Mario loses his hat, what happens to it? Well, it probably would depend on the level. Like, you could lose the hat in Shifting Sandlands, and it's because this bird just steals the hat, and in order to get it back, you need to knock it out of his hands. But what if you lost your hat in Snowman's Land, then lost a life? You would jump back into the level to discover that one of the snowmen is now wearing your hat. And I had thought that these snowmen just could not be beaten, so does that mean that I can't get my hat back? Actually, that is not entirely the case. I think that one time when I was playing Big Boo's Haunt, my sister had told me that she saw my cousin just having Mario circle around the eyeball enemies to kill them, and that actually worked. And that was what I had been doing anytime that I either played Super Mario 64 or a ROM hack of Super Mario 64, but those will come at a later time. And I think I remember reading a signpost, and this was on my own playtime. I did not have the assistance of any friends or relatives this time around, and I think that I read a sign that said, running around certain enemies can kill them. And that's what I did for these snowmen. So I circled around them to see if that would kill them, and it did. So that meant that if a snowman was wearing Mario's hat, you could still get it back simply by making them fall over like this after circling around them. So that was a relief. Now getting on to Cool Mountain, I'm going to pretty much discuss about what I think about that level. I remember sometimes jumping into the chimney in this house and having this race against a penguin, although sometimes the penguin would not be there. Now there are a couple of ways that you could slide down the big slide in Cool Mountain. You could either go down the entire slide fairly, or take this sort of shortcut. When I played this game my first couple of tries, I thought that the shortcut was the best way to go. considering that regardless of whether or not you're racing the penguin, if you go all the way down through the slide, whether you took the shortcut or took the long way around, then exit out of the house, you are actually given a star, regardless of whether you were racing the penguin or not. Although I didn't really understand what the star was for. I mean, obviously, anytime I tried to race the penguin and then use the shortcut, he accused me of cheating, and I just exit out of the house and still got the star anyway. What was up with that? Well, it turns out that the star that you get for exiting the slide house is not the star for racing against the penguin. In order to race against the penguin, you need to actually race and go all the way through without using the shortcut. As many people have pointed out, it is because there are invisible checkpoints on the slide, and the game checks to make sure that you have gone through those checkpoints to see if you have beaten the game fair and square. And then after that, the penguin gives you the star if you manage to beat him fair and square. So that was that mystery solved. I think that one time when I was playing this over at my next door neighbor's house, I think that some friends had said that you could race against something else on the slide. But I have played through this game so many times, and the penguin is the only thing that I have ever raced against on this entire slide. Maybe they were referring to that blue coin that appears as soon as you get started going down the slide, but that's not really something that you race against, and I'm not sure what they may have been talking about, or if this was even a real memory, or I'm just remembering incorrectly or something like that. I don't know. Getting on to Jolly Roger Bay, I'm sure that a number of people have seen this eel. You know, the eel that pokes out of the ship. Although I honestly thought that he was a shark at first, kind of similar to Clanker from Banjo-Kazooie, but nope, it's an eel. And I'm sure some people were scared by this eel, but I'm not quite sure what I thought of the eel at first glance. I mean, yeah, he does kind of look a bit scary, but I don't think that I was feeling that scared the first time that I saw him. Now, getting back to some of the later levels, I think that I remember when I had gone to Tiny Huge Island, you know, just jumping through the pipe to see some enemies just grow larger. I'm not quite sure how I really feel about that, although I think that my cousin had pointed out about how that level exactly works. It just took me a bit of time for me to understand how the level works and what exactly I needed to do. And then going to Wet Dry World, that level was kind of a bit confusing. Like, in a completed save file, I could see that I could just swim all the way to the town, although I could just simply take the cannon right there. But if I was playing my own save file without anyone else playing the save file before me, it was a bit confusing because that pink bomb was just out of my reach, and I just could not reach him in any way. What was I supposed to do? I tried all sorts of ways to get up to that platform, but I just could never do it. And I think there are some people who had also said that the water level in Super Mario 64's Wet Dry World would very often change randomly whenever the player enters the level. Well, actually, it's not random at all. It's actually very controllable. You see, the water level in Wet Dry World changes depending on how high or how low you have jumped into the painting. If you manage to jump into the painting as high as you possibly can, the water level will be up as high as it goes, and you can actually enter Wet Dry World without the need of the cannon. But even so, at least this makes it a lot easier for me to jump onto the platform and ask the pink bomb to open up the cannon. I guess it just really pays to play this game multiple times to just really learn how it actually works. Now, another thing that I should point out would be the sub-areas, such as the inside of the volcano in Lethal Lava Land, the inside of the pyramid in Shifting Sand Land, and the slide in Tall Tall Mountain. Like, once you enter those sub-areas, like, if you happen to lose a life while you are in that level and then jump back in, you start immediately over in the sub area. So if you wanted to go and do a different star outside of the sub area, well, the game would not let you until you got a star from inside the area where you were at. So once you were inside of the pyramid and shifting sandlands, the game would not let you back out into the rest of the level until you got a star in that pyramid. Now, I will admit that this was probably a good way to help some less experienced players to get second chances at getting these stars without going through the whole process of getting inside of these areas again. But the volcano in Lethal Lava Land is very easy to get into. I don't need the level to just drop me into the volcano if I happen to get a game over while I am in the volcano. I could just go in there manually. But no, the game says, I'm putting you back into this area, not letting you out anywhere until you get the star. Yeah, I bet some people found that to be quite annoying. Now, getting to the end of the game, you probably want to know about what I think about the last two levels. Well, for Tick-Tock Clock, that level was quite difficult. At least the first couple of times that I've played the game. Although there is also the fact that you could freeze the level if you happen to jump into the clock at a certain period in time, such as if the big hand was pointing at the 12. But I was just jumping into the clock, not even paying attention to where the hands were pretty much set. So if I entered the level and had the level be frozen like that, it would just be done through mere luck. It was not done intentionally. So I guess figuring out how that works probably is much easier once you figure it out. And as for Rainbow Ride, well, I'm gonna say that quite a lot of people probably think that level was pretty hard, and it is. Like trying to get so up high, like trying to go up into that house in the sky. I mean, the house in the sky was like very mysterious, like wondering what exactly was up there, and just trying to figure out ways to get up there. And the same goes for that floating pirate ship up high. Like, how many times have you fallen before you finally made it all the way up there? Yeah, I bet you've fallen a lot, haven't you? I probably have as well. And not to mention the last sub-level in the game, this being Wing Mario Over the Rainbow. You know, like if you jump into that hole that is the opposite of the entryway to Rainbow Ride, you will end up in this small cloud area where you need to fly around with the wing cap and collect 8 red coins. And pretty much how if you manage to drop down to the void, you end up outside of Princess Peach's castle. It's not a usual lose a life sort of situation. You just need to go all the way back through Princess Peach's castle to get up to it. I haven't mentioned some of the other sub-levels either. Although I think that the stages for activating the caps, I guess most people would just be like, let's just activate the cap and not worry about anything else. For the wing cap, that is pretty easy, although trying to figure out how to activate that level probably is a bit hard for beginners. The vanish cap, I would probably say, is a much harder one to get to, but once you figure it out, it isn't that bad. And the metal cap. Man, I bet there were quite a lot of people that had been trying to figure out where exactly is the metal cap found. Well, it's found somewhere within Hazy Maze Cave, but it can be really hard to find. But once you do find it, hopefully being able to activate the metal cap shouldn't be too difficult. Although I bet what can be aggravating is anytime you just skid off to the end of the area and then end up over the waterfall outside the Princess Peach's castle. Oh man, so many portals that just lead back to the outside of the castle if you happen to get stuck somewhere or just are forced out of the level. And then there are the slide levels. Well, I already discussed about the slide in Cool Mountain, but what about Princess Peach's secret slide? Well, when I played this game for my first couple of times, all I knew to do was to just slide down the bottom of the slide, and I think a lot of other people that I knew who played this game did that as well. Like, I don't think anyone that I knew ever figured out that if you manage to get to the bottom of the slide within 20 seconds, you will get a star. I bet most people would just be like, okay, well, we just slide down all the way here, and oh, there's the star. Like there's one star that's just in a box where all you gotta do is just get down there regardless of how long it takes, and you just open up the box, and there's the star. But then there's the other star that you get if you manage to get down within 20 seconds. And I bet that there were some people that I knew who didn't even know this. They probably only knew about getting the star from the box. Now on to the final Bowser level. Well, I think that beating the last Bowser is probably just the best reward for playing the game. Nowadays, I'm sure that there are some people that probably like to collect all of the stars because it kind of feels more like they're really beating the game if they get all of the stars in the game rather than the minimum requirement of 70 stars. Now, when I first learned about the endless staircase, I was a bit confused as to how going up the stairs for so long just ends up getting you nowhere. And then when you turn back, you discover that you never really left the ground floor. And like, you may just run up the stairs for a while, like maybe for 10 minutes. And then you turn around to discover that you're only a few steps above where you started off. Now, there is a good explanation for this because the staircase actually warps Mario down a few steps to make it look like the staircase is endless, but this was a bit confusing, especially for beginner players. It also was a bit confusing over the fact that you could actually go through the doors before you even had the 70 stars required in order to go through the door. It's just that if you have less than 70 stars in the game, you would just enter an endless staircase, and no matter how high you went up, no matter how long you took, you just would never get to the top. Now, fighting the last Bowser in this level, I really was not quite sure what to expect, considering that, well, the first two Bowsers gave me a key, but this one, where else is there to go after I beat this Bowser? Well, this Bowser was shown to be much more difficult than the other two Bowser fights. Like, instead of one hit, you need to do 3 hits. And the fact that the ground breaks as the battle progresses is quite difficult. Now, during the first couple of Bowser fights, I guess one of the most obvious things you could do is just keep swinging Bowser over towards one of the bombs, or maybe even lure him over there. But during the final Bowser fight, you could not do that for the third one, because the bombs are just too far away from the ends of the star platform that you are standing on. So whenever I fought against this Bowser, I pretty much had to rely on luck in order for me to hit the bombs. Now, nowadays, I could just simply properly view as to where to throw Bowser and properly do timing to make sure that he is thrown in the direction that I need him to get thrown at. But how would I have known that when I was first playing this game? So pretty much once Bowser is beaten during this third and final fight, we don't get a key for our efforts, we instead get this star. But it's not like any other star in the game. You just collect the star, Mario gets a wing cap, and that's pretty much where the ending cutscene plays. We see the ending cutscene of Princess Peach getting rescued from the castle, and then the credits roll. And you probably feel very satisfied about playing the game. But if you didn't collect all of the stars, then you probably want to go back and see what stars you could have gotten, right? Well, Is there anything that we can get if we manage to get all 120 stars in the game? That brings me to another topic. So, if you have played Super Mario 64, you probably know about this cannon that is underneath a drain. And you probably are like, well, where's the pink bomb for me to ask to open the cannon? Where can I find him at? You would probably just search around to try to find that pink bomb. Like maybe he's in a hidden area that you have yet to find. But you just never find him. So what exactly do you do? Well, from watching some YouTube videos, I had discovered that in order for this cannon to be opened up, you needed to collect all 120 stars in the game, which was something that I never did prior to coming to YouTube. Now, if you do open up the cannon by collecting all of the stars in the game, you will meet up with Yoshi on the back of the castle. And Yoshi will just reward you for collecting all of the stars in the game and give you all of the lives. I mean, it is probably quite satisfying to see Yoshi in this game when you don't see him anywhere else. So that's pretty much all I have to say about my first experiences with playing Super Mario 64 for the very first time. Yeah, there were certainly quite a lot of bumpy bits along the way of playing the game, but as I said, the more you play the game, the more you know about it, and the more easier this game becomes. Like, you may fail quite a lot the first time that you play this game, but if you keep playing it again and again, you just get better, and before you know it, this game is like too easy now. Probably gets very boring after a while. But at least there have been a number of different ROM hacks that have been made about this game over the years, and I may look over those in future videos. So thank you so much for watching this video. What were your first experiences of playing Super Mario 64? If there is anything that I didn't mention in this video that you want me to respond about, well, if you post in the comments below asking me about something that I didn't mention in this video, feel free to leave them below and I will be sure to give you my responses to those. But do be sure that you watch through the entire video first before you post those comments, because you could probably say, oh, well, what about Big Boo's Haunt? You didn't mention that. Yes, I did mention Big Boo's Haunt. And yeah, I know, I didn't mention the scary piano. Yeah, not really anything to say about that one, but, you know, scary piano. Alright, that's about all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey there, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to see more videos from me, click on any of the video links that show up on the screen. And also feel free to subscribe to my channel, and if you can, share this video on all your social media if you can. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.